Monkeys, our distant primate cousins, have always captivated the human imagination. There's something about them that's inherently funny. Perhaps their appearance, which has some semblance to our own, but for a lack of a better word, seems more primitive. Their eyes at the front of their heads, their dexterous feet and hands, resemble our own bodies to some degree. Their behavior clearly shows a level of intelligence far surpassing that of most animals, yet lower than that of human intelligence, which has sparked fascination and curiosity among us. Throughout human history, wherever humans made contact with monkeys, monkeys found themselves in folklore, religion, and iconography. Before we move on, I want to point out that this video will not be about the great apes, namely chimps, gorillas, orangutans, and gibbons, as those are not monkeys. They don't have tails, and they tend to be much larger and have more developed brains. They probably deserve a video of their own. Anyway, monkeys have shaped the natural world long before Homo sapiens arrived on the scene. At first, these creatures were relegated to parts of Africa and Eurasia. These were the ancestors of today's Old World monkeys for the most part. The ancestors of apes like us split off from this group. These creatures did their best in warm climates that were not excessively arid, namely the jungles and savannas. These biomes also had trees, which could be utilized for food and shelter. Monkeys would master these environments through the use of dexterous hands and feet, long limbs, and a keen sense of vision, with eyes located at the front of their heads, as well as a large developed set of brains. The vast majority of these species, again, reside in the tropics and subtropics. However, there are a few that live in temperate climates, most famously the Japanese macaque, also known as snow monkeys. Nonetheless, these are again the exceptions. The only wild monkeys in Europe are the Barbary macaques, which were probably brought from Morocco to the British-owned Gibraltar at the southern tip of Spain. Monkeys would also conquer the Americas as well, probably making it before they made it to Europe. The most likely explanation was that they rafted on logs and debris during storms off the coast in Africa, and after a long voyage at sea in which most of them died, some of the survivors eventually ended up in South and Central America. After all, traveling across the land bridge of the Bering Strait would have been too cold for most monkeys, and we haven't seen any fossil remains across the temperate regions of North America, so it's most likely the result of oceanic travel. These castaways would evolve to be smaller and usually use prehensile tails. Prehensile tails are ones that can be essentially used as a fifth limb, making them far better at climbing than their old world counterparts. As the genus Homo evolved in East Africa, they certainly came into contact with old world monkeys. These early interactions probably involved them hunting monkeys for bushmeat, a practice that still exists today in parts of the developing world. Humans would spread across much of Africa and into Asia, and eventually across the Bering Strait into the Americas. And many of these cultures also used monkeys as a source of protein in their new homes. However, in various locations, agriculture began to emerge, and outside indigenous hunter-gatherers in the near jungle terrain, monkey meat was usually replaced with that of goats, sheep, cattle, chickens, and pigs. However, monkey brains in particular still became a popular delicacy in parts of Africa and East Asia. With the advent of farming crops and permanent settlements, monkeys oftentimes became a nuisance, destroying crops and eating fruits, nuts, and produce. As a result, they were oftentimes hunted as pest control. Nonetheless, monkeys played an important role in various human cultures. This is most clearly seen in the Indian subcontinent, namely the religion of Hinduism. One of the most prominent Hindu gods, Rama, the seventh avatar of the god Vishnu, has a champion depicted as a quasi-humanoid monkey figure. They feature prominently in Hindu epic tales, namely the Ramayana, one of the longest and oldest written stories in history. The tale includes a race of supernatural monkey-like humanoids, known as the Vanara. In the epic poem, these monkeys, like people, aid Rama and his champion in defeating their demonic enemies. However, in Buddhism, they tend to have more of a negative portrayal, oftentimes associating monkeys with deceit and trickery. Given how smart they are, it's not surprising that many human cultures would associate them with tricksters. Today in India, there are urban monkey mafias, which gang up and steal food from humans. Further to the east, in China, monkeys would play a less prominent role in this more temperate part of the world. However, they did make it into the Chinese zodiac. Even further to the east lies the homeland of the aforementioned Japanese macaques. Like many cultures around the world, these creatures were associated with tricksters and oftentimes were seen as mischievous. In Shintoism, the guard between the earth and the heavens was manned by a monkey-like deity. The most famous Japanese depiction of the monkeys would probably be the three wise monkeys, which represent see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. Monkeys also played a role in the oral traditions of various people groups in the Americas and Africa, but the lack of written records makes tracing the dates of these stories rather difficult. As the modern age came to fruition, monkeys would play less and less of a role in religion and more of a role in science. Strides, not only in refining the scientific method, but also in evolution, genetics, and behavioral psychology, would by the 20th century make monkeys a relatively common model organism in labs due to their similarity with humans. The use of monkeys as test subjects is controversial, given how emotionally complex monkeys are. Despite these ethical issues, studies on monkeys have been used to develop groundbreaking vaccines such as that for polio during the 1940s, among other ailments like several types for hepatitis. However, monkeys, while saving human lives, have also contributed to the deaths of many people, as bushmeat from monkeys have oftentimes contained zoonotic diseases that can spread to humans. Monkeys have also become popular model organisms in psychological studies given their intelligence. Experiments have shown that when baby monkeys are scared, they seek comfort in soft dummies that replicate their mothers. This suggests that there's an innate preference for soft and furry textures, rather than it just being something humans adopted culturally. There was also a study done on fairness, in which some monkeys were given cucumbers and others were given tastier grapes. The monkeys that got cucumbers got angry, showing an intimate understanding of the concept of fairness. Monkeys have also been used for scientific matters in space. The United States, France, and Soviet Union have all tested monkeys in space. The first one was Albert I, who unfortunately died in the capsule either before or during the flight. Albert II was the next one and survived the flight but died on return during a parachute failure. Albert III died when the V-2 rocket exploded, and Albert IV died during a parachute failure as well. Albert V, however, did successfully land after his flight, although he died a few hours later, most likely due to heat exhaustion and intense stress. As tragic as these tests were for the monkeys, they did pave the way for manned spacecraft. Looking back at all of this, I think what fascinates people about monkeys is that they're like rudimentary versions of ourselves, inquisitive, yet reckless, nurturing, yet violent, adaptable, but also fragile. We see some semblance of our human selves in them.